Hello there, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this or getting this video. I'm Martin Cross. This is Cross's Corner, and I am absolutely delighted to have with me Sean Wolf. We'll get into what Sean does during our podcast, but founder of rowingillustrated.com, podcaster, worked for Fluid Design, manic tweeter about rowing, American rowing in particular. Sean, it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate this. Like I said before, I'm not your most famous guest, but hopefully your most entertaining. So let's have some fun, talk rowing, and we'll banter and see what's going on in the rowing world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So just before we start, it's just really great to have the chance to say thank you to Ludum, who sponsor these videos. And Ludum, if you don't know, is a training management tool and performance analysis as well for sports groups, for coaches, for training groups. And you can start a free 30-day trial by visiting ludum.com, and the little banners will go across the bottom of the screen during our chat. So, Sean, I've got lots to ask you, questions about American rowing and so on. But I guess the big question at the moment is the Olympics and the American crews, which we haven't seen race at all. And it'd be nice to get your view in terms of, what you think might represent a decent performance for the American crews, or what you're expecting to see at this stage.
It's during this time, I'm expecting some really fabulous racing. You gave Mike Tavy another year with the men's 8. We've got some good young talent there. You gave Tom Terhar, and that boat is actually a lot different than it was in 2019. Some really good ERG scores in that boat. So women's sculling, Jevy's got a new partner in Wagner. They can be formidable. Kara, she's right in the medal hunt. I'm still favoring the Russian sculler, so all of Great Britain could get a little fussy with me that I'm favoring the Russian sculler still. But I'm expecting, really good, solid performance. We've got some good young talent coming up. People like Clark Dean, all these people who are just, big young studs of rowers. Just great stuff mixed in with some experience, like Megan Musicny as a women's 8. So let's bring it on. Let's get to Tokyo. Let's I'm sure one of the hardest processes to make the women's 8 here is to race each other, and that's pretty battle tested. It's, if you make that women's 8, you're pretty in line to go.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because 2019 was obviously, I guess, given the standards of Tom Tahara, pretty disappointing championships for the American women's 8. And they've had some problems in lockdown. Some of the women had the COVID virus and had to get over that. But, the vibe coming out of the camp is, as you said, that, the women's squad is pretty strong. And with Brooke Mooney and others in the 8 with those amazing ergometer scores, it's going to be quite a unit.
Ooh, hold on 1 second. The air conditioner just popped on. My fault. All right. I had to turn it off. Sorry. It's hot today. Brooke Mooney, she is, all in everything in that ergo, all in everything. Where was she, a couple years ago? She's on top. But like I said, don't count out the men too. You gave Tavy another year with the 8. Man, that could be really, really formidable.
It's really interesting what, Mike's got in terms of with his training setup there, because I think, if you probably looked at the program that Mike does with his guys, he does it's less than, say the British 8 would do, or maybe the Kiwi 8 would do, or maybe even the German 8. They're training less times in the week, but I guess trying to be more effective because they've all got jobs, haven't they, that they go to?
As far as I know, they've had jobs. Let's just say that camp's been pretty darn quiet on social media, pretty darn quiet. Katie doesn't have Facebook or Snapchat or anything, so he's not broadcasting anything that's coming out of his camp. But, you got Clark Dean out there. You've got all these guys who are throwing down pretty good erg scores. I've heard rumors.
Yeah.
Of erg scores coming out of there. I'm going to say somewhere in the 540s, things like that. So I think they're pretty darn competitive, with some of those GB guys and some of those German guys, which is probably going to be the fireworks show. And I'm picking Germany to beat GB.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. I heard you said that on one of your recent podcasts, Sean, and I still want to get back into the American stuff, but let's just talk about your prediction. You picked Germany to beat GB. Why is that?
Germany knows there. They've been there. GB just that last World Cup race. Where GB found that, I don't know, but I think both crews went there, but I think Germany's got something more to give. You can watch that race 10 different times and see different movements of the boat, but I'm just going to go with Germany to annoy Fat Sculler, Daniel Spring. That's the whole thing, right? Just going to send him in a tizzy. He's probably listening or something and start to tweet. So, but yeah, I gotta, pump the brakes on GB a little bit there.
I think, if you follow him on social media, on Twitter, Fat Sculler, Daniel Spring, he's great at making predictions, and he goes through all the analysis of all the crews before each big event, and he'll write an analysis before the Olympics. But he's quite patriotic in terms of British crews. So he likes to predict.
Every GB crew. He would just, Fats, who are you going to pick? GB. Fats, they're not even in the race, and he's still picking GB. It's great.
Yeah. I think the men's 8 is going to be, certainly it's one of the most highly anticipated events from my perspective. But you haven't mentioned any of the other runners and riders. You mentioned just GB and Germany, but what about the New Zealanders? They just came over. They had to acclimatise to Europe. Jet lag couldn't have been that great. There was all the COVID protocols, and then they came over and then just delivered, beat Romania in that Olympic qualification race, who were so close behind Britain at the Europeans. So I'm thinking New Zealand, with Hamish Bond in there, with the pair in there, with Brake and Murray, are going to be some force to be reckoned with. But you haven't got them in your top 2.
No, in fact, I've got them behind the USA. You had to qualify, and now you're taking all the parts and dumping them in the 8 and hoping it cooks up something. It is an 8. So hopefully they're working together and getting there. But I'm putting them behind the USA in 4th. I got the USA in bronze, and Germany, Great Britain, USA, New Zealand.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask you what you think would be an acceptable result for the American men's 8 in terms of, Mike's had them as a group for quite a while over there in San Francisco, and clearly the result in 2016 was disappointing for the men's 8.
Yep.
So what would be an acceptable result as far as you're concerned?
As far as I'm concerned, bronze is great. I think bronze is getting on the podium at this point between GB and Germany. That's fantastic. It's an untested crew with no international experience this year. So they're going to learn a little bit maybe through the regatta. But like I said, you give Mike another year. I think they did qualify. New Zealand did not qualify. That there's something there. When it came down to it, the U.S. did qualify the boat. New Zealand, and everyone's like, "Oh, New Zealand!" Like, well, you had Mahi. He wasn't that bad of a rower in the boat. You had a bunch of good guys in that boat before, but here's where we're at. So I'm gonna run my patriotic, "Make America Great Again" flag up the road, and say, let's get a medal.
Yeah. How do you rate the men's 4? Because Clark Dean, I think he might be stroking that boat. I'm not sure of the order, but
right.
I guess he might be stroking like he was in 2019. They made the final back then. It's a different unit.
Yeah.
How do you read that?
I read that somewhere we're feeling out sort of the mid to back of the pack of the final, A final there. I think it's still difficult to get into that final, but anything can happen once you get in there. And any given day, anyone can beat everyone. So get those guys into the final, and hopefully, you know, they're fighting for something. But GB's got that. What do you guys do about the 4? It just amazes me. A couple of years ago, we weren't talking about GB being in the final. Now they're being favored for a medal, but I just don't know if the USA has the guns to compete with those top crews in the men's 4.
I think it's really interesting. You mentioned with the British 4 how they have built on, you know, a decent season in 2019. They were off the pace for the gold and silver medals. They had a pretty solid middle, but they got rode through in the end, you know, by Romania, and the Poles were out there.
Oh, yeah.
But now, like you say, I think the year that they've had off with COVID, you know, the younger ones in it, because they've been training under Jurgen Grobler's regime, and now they've got this sort of super coach, Robin Williams, who, as you probably know, coached the women's pair to gold medals in London and Rio, and he's now working his magic with the 4, and they now would probably go into Tokyo as favourites, I think.
Oh yeah, when you mention Robin Williams, I always think Robbie Williams, the British
the singer. So, yeah.
I'm a fan of Robbie Williams. I'm also a fan of Robin Williams. So don't get me wrong. But every time you think, I'm thinking, you know, oh, we're going to hear a good song, pop song. But no, GB is just, they've got something about the 4, you know. But that's still not an easy event, you know. It's still a tough event to win.
Yeah, I think the Australians have put a lot of their top rowers in the 4. I think it probably would be their top sweet boat as well. And although they bombed out in 2019, you know, there is no way they're going to do that in 2021.
What do you think happened here? Because they spun their wheels down the course. They were spinning and spinning up in the mid 40s. What, it was like unbelievable to watch them spin and not go anywhere. Do you think they just
did wrong? It's really interesting that you say that, because there may be something about gearing. I remember when they raced in the Worlds back in 2018 in Plovdiv, and they had a similar high rate of striking. They shot off, and it was quite close at the end. They just held off the Italians, who came with a very late charge. But they had a decent season in that 2019. They had no issues with the rate. You know, they were a high rating crew, and then all of a sudden at the World Championships, they got completely dumped in the first 500.
Oh yeah,
and you'd expect them to kind of come back, but whether it, I talked with Jack Hargreaves earlier, just at the end of last year, and Jack wasn't particularly forthcoming. He said they'd had talks about it. He said, you know, it was a surprise to him that they weren't going quickly. You know, they feel they've put measures in place to make sure it won't happen again. But it was a real turn up, I think.
Yeah,
Australian 4.
If there's anyone that could beat GB in the men's 4, I think it's the Italians, because they just don't know any better. They're just going to go out and rate high, and they're going to move a boat, because watching the Italians row, you just never know what's going to happen in the last 500. They're going to go out, fly, and then lately they've been able to shoot some jets off and go, like in the last 300 meters, we've seen these guys get on and get medals. And they've got a ton of young talent coming up too. Tons.
Yeah. So that's kind of with the men's team. Just before we look at expectations for the women's team, American male sculling, individual sculling, and crew sculling. It's always been quite a challenge, I think, to try and, you know, get into that Olympic level qualification to try and make the A final. Why do you think that is?
I couldn't tell you. We like sculling. We're just not very good at it. I don't know what to say. It's very hard pressed to watch these scullers go and try and keep up, and you have your hopes on these young kids. And, you know, we just had John Graves retire. You know, we just haven't found anyone big enough. I mean, our last couple scullers have been John Graves, Kevin Meter, who I swear are about as tall as I am, you know, and they're strong and technically well. Man, I've been around World Championship boat lots, and I've seen the male scullers, and they're all 6'5" and 200 pounds, and, you know, if not more. And they're just big, big, long guys. They're just amazing beast, and they row well. Like, I just wish, we may get some hope coming. We may have, a Ben Davison, come out. We may have Clark Dean, who has hinted that he will go for the single next time around. He will start thinking about the single after this Olympics. So, yeah, we've got some great talent out there that can scull. Clark Dean has got two junior world championships, and now he's bypassed, everything, and now he's stroking the U.S. men's straight four. So let's see if we can get out of there. And if he comes back to Boston, maybe finishes a year here and gets a little bit of the Charlie Butt magic, let's go. It's showtime.
Yeah. So that's American men's sculling. What do you think would be an acceptable result for Tom Tahar's crews in terms of medals, where they finish? What would be reasonable considering, Tom's history in the event or what they did in 2019? And
I think so. We're looking at silver or gold in the women's 8 would be acceptable, I feel. I think that's good. New Zealand's really good. Canada can still throw something down. You've got a lot of good crews there coming, but I think we've loaded that with some good talent, some good horsepower, as well as some, like I said, the experience of Megan Musicny. We've got a coxswain who's been down the road before here, and they didn't have a good performance last time they were out. So I think that women's 8 is gunning a little bit now, and I think they could be really, really strong. Women's 4, I don't know too much. I think it could be a great boat. Bronze, maybe. We'll stay there. I think that's a safe bet. I'm playing my cards safe a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why I'm looking at the sweet boats.
What about Megan Calmo and Tracy Iser, is it?
Yeah, we've got, Megan Calmo. This is like her 4th Olympics. Look at that. We've got a woman athlete at her 4th Olympics competing for a medal, and I think they can be right in the middle of that final. I don't know where they'll end up, but they row well enough and they're strong enough, and it'd be great to see. Megan's already announced that she's retiring, so it's no big thing here. That it'd be great to see Megan go out with another medal.
Yeah, and I don't think that's beyond it. That women's pairs event. You've got the New Zealanders, you've got the Australians. Prendergast and Gowley. You've got Morrison and McIntyre. You've got Filmer and Janssens from Canada.
Right.
And then you've got Megan, and then there's this new British pair with Helen Glover, who's just had 3 kids, returned to the sport with Polly Swan, who partnered her in 2013, and we've only seen them race at the Europeans, Sean, and they were good to win it, but the other pairs were quite close behind them. But their prognostic times, the percentage times were quite good, and in terms of some of the other gold medal crews. So I think that's going to be really stacked at the top end of that field.
Definitely. I mean, you have someone who has experience in the pair in that GV pair. I mean, she knows the ropes of this event. So it still puzzles me. I'm like, why did she come back? She was out on her top. What? Okay, what are we doing coming back? All right, 3 kids, hey, more power to you. But I was just still so surprised that she comes back in the middle of a COVID year. It wasn't like it was like something off the cuff. She came back in the middle of a COVID year and got, threw down and won Euros.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah. And you mentioned about Jevy Stone and a partner and Chrissy Wagner and Clara Kohler. I mean, I would have thought Clara is definitely aiming for a podium finish.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what you make of the Russian Prakatsin in terms of bursting on the scene. If you got any thoughts on that, or
I think the Russian's going to win. I'm telling you right now, she is here. She's fast, and after the last World Cup, she knows she can beat them. She knows that she was fast. She qualified the boat. Then she went off and won that World Cup right after the qualifier. Then she comes back, and then she gets all the top scullers, and she's like finishes way out ahead of them. Now she knows. Now you have confidence going into the Olympics with that much confidence. Oof, That's crazy. And I know you're going to hear all the gray rumors surrounding everything, but until anything pops up, she's my favorite, and by a good margin.
Yeah.
But I think you'll see Kara coming right there pushing her. I think Kara's good for a silver. Let's see what the Irish sculler has. I think she's in the mix there. It's a great event. It's a great event.
And the women's doubles with Crossy and Jevi, where'd you put their potential finish?
In the final, I don't know where. I just don't. It's they were that last World Cup with Jevi and Cecily, or the last World Championship in 2009, Jevi and Cecily leading at one point, and everyone just came through them. Was disheartening. And I'm sure it was more so for them. But it looked like they were working so hard in that last World Championship and then everyone just went up a gear and went through them, like boom, like you went from first to fifth. I was like, whoa, it's crazy. It's like, but you're leading worlds, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, everyone goes, and you're like, okay, not a bronze medal, not fourth, not fifth. It's like, damn. But when I've seen Christy and Jevi, like when Christy, did well at trials, and then she came up here and rode with Jevi, I'm just like, both their catches are matching up a little bit better, than her and Cecily. And it's nothing against Cecily. Cecily's in the women's quad now, but just watching Christy's and Jevi's catches going just a little bit more together, a little bit more snappy, just matching up a little bit better. Just look like they have a little bit different flow off the front end. So I wasn't surprised to see Christy make that double with Jevi when Greg Stone, Jevi's father, ran selection here. So I thought it was great. But once I saw them in the boat together, and you can see them every day. You're watching these talented scullers. We had a ton of talented scullers here this fall. During the year of COVID, we had Jevi. We had all these lightweights here and we'll get to lightweight scullers here, but all like these fellows, all these scullers going up and down the river, doing Hello to Charles pieces with us that we're just starting to see them come out. So we had some good sculling here to watch, and now watching them train and go for the Olympics now, they could be in the hunt. Who else are we looking at the double here? What are your thoughts on the double?
Romania. There's a new Kiwi double. Hannah Osborne, I think, has pushed Olivia Lowe out of the the New Zealand double that were world champions back in 2019. So I think it's Osborne and Donahue. And then you've kind of got the Dutch. And then I think, is there a Russian women's double too as well? I'm just trying to think if they won qualifiers.
I don't remember, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't.
But the Romanians have killed everybody into Bodnar and Radis in terms of World Cup regattas and Europeans this year.
But we weren't even talking about Romania like at the beginning of this cycle. Now we're talking about Romania. Like, it's not just Romanian scullers, Romanian sweep rowers. We got Romanian men, now working their way into these finals now. So Romania's been back on the scene. They have a new coach, I guess. Did they get a?
They've had the same coach. The guy in charge of the program is Antonio Colomanici from Italy.
Yep.
And he's had a lot of young Romanians. He's had to try and rebuild men's and women's team. And I think it's the same thing as the British team. Like in the men's 8, there's a lot of guys there apart from one, Mo Sabihi, for whom it'll be their first Olympics. And I think, that 8 in 2019 really benefited from the Olympics being delayed a year.
Right.
And gave them time to build. And I think it's much the same with the Romanians. I think, it's a young squad. They've had a chance to get big and strong. I mean, they're not big pullers on the erg, the guys in the 4 that got the silver medal back in 2019, they're around 6 minutes, 5:50.
They row well.
They row really well. And they bring they bring a zest and a fluidity and aggressivity to their racing. The Romanian men's 8, I think, is a case in point. I think the Romanian men's 8 is just waiting to happen, and they did get very close to Britain in the Europeans.
Right.
Couldn't quite pull it off against New Zealand in the qualifiers, but I think, if not now in Tokyo for Paris, I think they'll be a real force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, next Olympics is definitely a quick turnaround. Oh, we didn't even talk about the men's double, like China, Ireland. This is gonna be
Yeah,
great.
what did you make of that? Did you enjoy that race?
Oh yeah, that was great. I mean, it's good to see, Chinese scullers, like even their women's quad. By the way, no one's touching the Chinese women's quad. You can send out whatever you want. No one's beating them. They're going to win by like 5 lengths open easily.
Yeah.
You could test them later, but they row well. They're stronger. They won Henley. They dominated everywhere they've gone. I really like those two boats. The Chinese scullers are great. I think they can pull one down. I think if there's 2 events the Chinese win, women's quad, men's double, I think that'll be great. I think the Irish lightweight men's double is going to walk over the field. I think they've got a whole new, still the best thing in move and rowing I've ever seen is when the final, you remember this, the speed coach pops off, he picks it up, puts it on, and still wins the final of a World Cup event. Amazing. Nothing better than that in rowing. I've got it saved on my TiVo. I can watch it over and over. Who the hell does that? I would have let it go. But yeah. What are your thoughts on that double?
I think the Chinese are probably slight favourites to win it. Considering they came over, they had jet lag and all the rest of the acclimatization to do for Lucerne. That close race with the Irish, I was blown away by what the Irish did in Lucerne, and I think if they step on a bit, then they could really take on the Chinese.
Yeah.
I was so excited in the early season to see the French double. They just were so technically precise, and I just loved the way they sculls Boucheron and Androdius. They didn't seem to get it together at Lucerne. They'd done a lot of racing. They'd been at various World Cups, and I don't know quite if they've been in a heavy period in their program. But I think the French will be right up there. The Polish too. The Russian double looked very impressive, winning qualification regatta. Russian men's double. Yet didn't see them race at Lucerne or in Zabaudia. So I think that's going to be a really tough event with Chinese marginal favourites.
Yeah, definitely. I think
Did we talk about the American lightweight women's double?
No, Michelle and Molly. They're Eminem. They're great. I mean, they lit the world on fire. Everyone's all about Michelle and Molly right now. Also, it's great to have them. They win the qualifier. I get a little worried when people on my website start saying, "Ooh, they're medal favorites." I'm like, whoa. You can't go. Let's get to the Olympics first and see how it goes. I think they're great. They're strong. Molly was here chasing me down the Charles, for head of the Charles pieces last fall. So she's been here training that group there, having coaching, and they came out and they beat 2 pretty formidable U.S. scullers who had already been and won world championship medals, and not only did they do it, but they dominated. It's like Molly dropped her oar and picked it back up. And
that was sensational.
Yeah. And I'm just like, wow. And it's like, but they worked that field over. And I was texting with someone. I'm like, they just won the time trial by like 17 seconds. And he's like, oh, the other 2 are holding back. I'm like, no one's holding back at that point. No one holds back in a time trial and wants to lose by 17 seconds at any point. Because you still got to look at the paper every day and be like, yeah, we were far behind in the time trial. That's a lot to make up. You really got to be comfortable blowing a time trial. I'm like, so Molly and Michelle, props to them. I think they're in the final. I don't know who the 2 girls that just got the new world best time. The Netherlands?
Ilse Paulis and Marika Kaiser.
Yeah, no one even knew they were on pace. I was listening to you guys commentate on the race, watching you, and I'm like, wow, they're going on pace, but no one even realized they got a world best time until like it was said and done. Like you mentioned it, as soon as it was over, you're like, that's a new world best time.
It was very interesting. I felt quite embarrassed about it in a way, but I was checking the pace for the crews in the races before, and then conditions. It's quite a nice wind, and then the wind dropped, and so the crews dropped off a pace. And because we were doing commentary remotely, didn't realize that the wind had got up again for their race. So it's really quite a strong tailwind, and so. And they were.
It didn't look like it was. The run looked good, and they were just moving and moving. Catches were nice as always.
And I think what's interesting about that time, Sean, is that if you look at the prognostic, the percentage times relative to world's best, quite often the lightweight women's double would be right at the top of the list. And, you know, one reason for that might be that the time for the lightweight women's double relative to the other boats may not have been as fast as it should have been. And now the Dutch have set this new time for 3 seconds better than the old record. I kind of think that's balanced out that will have balanced out the prognostics even more for that event.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think they're definitely favored for the Olympics. Hopefully we get some good conditions. Because we want to see what Ali Ziedler can do in like a tailwind, right? I think he's getting better. But if it's a rough day, a lot of people are still going towards Severy or Kettle. So, but I think with Ali, everyone's like, but he's gotten better since 2019. He's had 2 more years in the single, and there has been some couple of conditions where, he's able to bounce back, and he's so big and strong. Amazing.
Yeah, going to be a sensational race. Sean, I want to talk to you about American college rowing because you've been watching the contest. I think you were there at the NCAAs.
I was not. I watched everything online.
So what did you make of it? Because for the women's 8, for Dave O'Neill's crew from Texas, that
Hookham, Texas, right? Dave will love if I say Hookham, Texas. I coxed Dave way back in the 80s.
You're kidding.
Dave and I know. No, Dave.
You used to cox, didn't you? You used to cox.
Yep, I went to camp. I went to a selection camp as a coxswain or lightweight camp as a coxswain. But Dave O'Neill was there. He was a good rower. Great rower for here at Riverside. He's learned some really good stuff from a really good coaching friend of ours, Steve Sawyer. You can sort of see a little bit of Steve Sawyer and Dave when Dave shuts his eyes and start talking. I know where he learned that from. But Texas did it. So that whole scenario was amazing. That whole scenario. So UW's favored. All UW has to do is get second, and you win the national championship. That's the way it is. Second in men's, second in the women's varsity 8. That's all they need because of the points.
Yeah.
Then you've still got to beat my buddy Derek Burns, who also rode at Riverside Boat Club with me. I rode with Derek. So he's the coach of Stanford now.
Yeah.
They've just got to do well, and they can win a national championship. So UW just needs second, and they win. They're out of it, and it's down to Stanford and Texas. Texas comes blazing through. Stanford puts up a good fight, and they win. Like, whoa. I was like, whoa, UW just needed second place, and you win the national championship. And Texas, boom, right over them. Good performance by everybody. Great performance by Texas. That, unfortunately, we're going to hear about this forever because if you follow Texas social media, it's still ongoing. They're still celebrating. They're still celebrating down in Texas. Matthew McConaughey tweeting them,
Oh, you're kidding.
No, Matthew McConaughey is a big Texas fan. He's huge.
Oh, wow. That's sensational. So it was a massive upset in terms of U.S. college rowing.
I wouldn't say upset. I would say UW was favored, and Texas had everything. They earned their position to win that. So it was close, but Texas did have an upset in the 8. I think that's where it was. Not across the board because it's women's college rowing, so it's the whole thing. And UW was favored, and UW was in a perfect position to win. And, I'm not talking disparagingly about Yaz and her crews. I'm just like, they were in a perfect position to win, and it just sort of with the delay in racing, I think just things like sort of started to sway, because you know what it's like when on a race course and things starting to get delayed. You have young athletes that
Yeah.
would go in, then go back out, and you know Dave just did a little bit of his mojo, and next thing you know, Texas is winning. You know,
Wow.
it's great.
Yeah, that's great. We had a great chat with Dave O'Neill last year. I can't remember, sometime last year. He's a lovely guy. I didn't realize you were. Well, I had seen somewhere that you were a Cox, and then you turned to lightweight rowing, didn't you?
Yeah. So I came to college at Northeastern University. I was 5'4", 112 pounds.
5'4" and 112. Bloody hell!
Freshman year of college. I left, and I was 6'2", 150. You know, college. So, you know, I grew up and I was still skinny. You know, but yeah, that's, and I Cox at Northeastern, and then the men's freshman coach Joe Wilhelm, who's now coaches a women's program, let me row, and because I was rowing in the erg, and I was also getting huge. I was like too big to be in the boat trying to make weight. I hit my growth spurt, or puberty, you could say, even later in life, and you know, I was 6'1" at one point, coxing at 130 pounds, and that was grotesque looking. It's nothing you want to see. So yeah, I grew, and then I rowed, and you know, then I spent some time away from rowing, you could say, away at the bars and discos.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, then I came back to rowing, and I made my first national team in 2000, light women's pair, you know, and then I made another team in the light women's quad, and then I spent a lot of time hanging out and rowing different elite boats and going from there. It was great.
Yeah. And what do you row at now, Sean? What's your sort of,
my weight?
Yeah.
I'm 162 pounds.
That seems pretty good.
Yeah, but as you know, I'm getting older, and you know, we start shrinking. You know, it's like, why do these pants, like, you know, dragging my crown? I'm losing. I used to be 6'2". I'm like 6'1.5" now.
So older. you do a lot of training on the Charles River, don't you?
Oh yes. Yes.
How often are you out each week?
Every day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. So 6 rowing sessions and 2 or 3 lifts a week.
And does anyone set your program, or do you just make it up as you go along?
I've got a lot of training programs. Like, I'm mixing a little bit of the Danish lightweight training program is what I'm using right now. I can't do that intensity every day, but I break it up. I use the 3S program. Greg Benning's a big fan of that.
What's the 3S program? Just explain.
Super Sport System. It's it's an online thing developed by a Russian guy. It's really good. But I'm sort of mixed up my programs a little bit this year. I lost the last head of the Charles, so I'm trying to win it again. So winning the Charles, I think, is like what I like to do, you could say, head of the Charles. And, you know, I think everything is geared towards that. So I won 4 in a row and a double with my buddy Pete Morelli. And 2 good friends of ours actually beat us the last one by 3 seconds. And that's like, so not only do you got to wait 1 year to race them, then there's no racing. You got to race 2 years to go back and fight for another title. That's a long time to get a shot.
Yeah,
Long time for no racing whatsoever. In fact, my first race will be for the last 2 years will be next week at the Independence Day Regatta in Philadelphia.
Oh wow! What are you competing in?
The Masters men's single. You know, I don't feel like losing 2 pounds, so I'm just gonna race the heavyweight guys. You know,
Yeah,
I don't feel like losing weight right now.
Yeah,
I'm too old for that. I want to eat and hang out and drink some beers.
So you won't be racing lightweight at the head of the Charles?
No, they don't have lightweights at the head of the Charles.
Oh, do they not?
Lightweight like at Masters Nationals with a bunch of old dudes like myself.
Yeah. And I guess everyone must be pretty pumped that the head of the Charles is up and running this year, and people must be quite excited about it.
Best news ever. You know, I got a call from Fred Schock and Mason Cox about 2 weeks ago, and they were giving me a little bit of inside information that they were going to announce, and they, you know, just best news ever to see that go on.
Just from Justin Best there, it says good luck at the IDL.
Don't worry, Justin, I won't get stung by a bee. You got stung by a bee racing in the Schuylkill. I saw that in the Row 2K the other day. Thanks, Justin.
Wow. Talk to me about rowingillustrated.com, which is, you know, your website and that you founded. And how what was the genesis of that, and how do you see it developing now?
Oof. It's basically a message forum, message board. So GB used to have Talk Rowing, and there were a lot of sites like that. And we actually had this site on Rowers World. Someone still, yes, Daniel. It sort of formulated out of an older website that had to be shut down. So I launched Rowing Illustrated and kept the message boards going, which is basically, a lot of people talking smack. Some know what they're talking about, some don't. It's apparent, but it's a good place for people to mix it up. I think you'd be surprised. There are literally talented Olympic coaches on there. And then there's people who've been in the sport maybe 2 years arguing. It's hilarious because I have a little bit of insight to some of the people. It's like they're arguing, and it can be hilarious at times, but there's a lot of good information being shared. Lots of it. We've had some really, really good people, give a lot of good information on there. Chris Chase, Casey Galvanic, all these guys are on the site looking over things. Casey Galvanic is he's about to go through hell. He's coaching the women's lightweight double at the Olympics. He's coaching the junior national team, which is going to go, I forget where they're going, Plovdiv again. And then he's coaching the women's sweep going to China. That man's going to have so much mileage on his points. It's crazy. But it's where all these people come and, share ideas, talk a little bit. College rowing's huge. International racing's huge there. We try and keep it somewhat together and have fun. But sometimes we get a couple of people we got to boot off. There's only one person we've kicked off the site. You ready for this?
Yeah, go on.
We've had to kick Zeno Mueller off the site.
You are kidding me.
Nope. I love Zeno. Zeno's great. I love his racing. I love his coaching, whatever. But Zeno is just all about Zeno's coaching and selling it. And I'm just all right, Zeno, we got to tone it down just a little. Didn't stop. So finally we had to say goodbye, Zeno. And Zeno's great. Zeno's great for interviews. Zeno is a great character, a great rower, a legend in his mind and everyone else's mind too. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how is the site now in terms of sponsors or any idea? Is it purely simply in your mind existing for the message boards?
It's existing for the message boards. I do it out of a pocket. I help sponsor a couple people. Like Adam Creek has a couple ads up there.
I saw that. Yeah.
Adam contacted me about paying me. I said, Adam, don't you have to pay me? Just, you're rowing, you're getting started off. Let's put up some, sponsorship there. My buddy Greg Doyle from Croker USA, he helps, put some stuff up there. But I don't take money for this anymore. I like giving back to it. That's where the podcast developed from, years ago. I've been doing podcasts for 10 years before it became a thing.
Yeah.
So it's great to see people come and go too. Some people come back years later and say, I can't believe this site's still here. Why is this site still here? You know? What will happen with it? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be 51 in less than a month. And, I don't want to be that cranky old dude at 60, and saying, get off my lawn, but maybe I'll pass it on to somebody.
Yeah. Listen, we talked about the NCAAs. We didn't mention the IRAs at all. No. What's your take on that?
Great event. Love it. Gary Caldwell, kudos to Gary. He's the IRA commissioner for putting that event together. Shame to miss Yale and Harvard this year. I'm sure Yale would have, but UW came in and just was like, yep, our year. Thank you very much. We'll take everything and go home. It's it's good, but it was so good to have racing back. I don't think you realize how it was for almost a year. Last spring, just no rowing, no sweep rowing, in a lot of places like the Charles. It's just no BU, no NU for a year. And it was great to have those programs back this year on the Charles River. It was great to see. Geez, can we even mention Dartmouth, and Wyatt Allen, bronze medal at the IRA, crazy. Good, big up to the green, everyone's talking about Wyatt Allen, and Dartmouth.
Wow, Wyatt Allen was coaching them, was he?
Yeah. Kudos to Wyatt. kudos. Like I
didn't
even heard, Northeastern gave Wyatt a call because they're looking for a new coach,
Yeah.
But I don't think Wyatt's leaving the Big Green. But yeah, just amazing, the culture that Wyatt has instilled in that program. To watch him develop that program over a couple of years. To watch UW just win is great. It was some great racing. Even the lightweight women's rowing, people came out and rowed this year. It was great to have rowing on all fronts. It was great.
Yeah. I think one of the winners in terms of Harvard and Yale not running their programs in that way has been the British under-23 team.
Yeah.
I think you had two of the guys from Harvard, Dowie DeGraff and Calvin Tarzi.
Mm-hmm.
Came second in the pairs, beat the Italian pair that won bronze in the 2016 Olympics. And they will be, I think, the under-23 pair for the World Championships. But there's also these guys from American universities gone to Oxford Brookes.
Yep.
And one of the four's got a medal at the third World Cup in Sabaudi. The other four made the final. And so I think that's been a real win, to have those guys back, and, training in their clubs or training in the British system.
Right. It makes them stronger for the year. I think it's good, but I love having foreign athletes come over here and row and, share their knowledge, just to see, look at Yale, what they show up with. Gladstone goes out, recruits, and, I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. I know Yale University. It's not the place to be. Trust me, it's not. It's New Haven's okay, but it's not great. But Yale's great school. Don't get me wrong, but I'm from there, so I know the area. But to watch Gladstone take that program and just resurrect it and just like put a stamp on it, within a couple of years, like 4 national championships in a row by a good margin, not by a little, by a good margin. Amazing. Great rowing. Good kudos to Mike Gennaro. He's been the assistant coach there too.
Yeah.
He's going to be a hot commodity. I'm surprised, want to see him. He might get hired somewhere. Men's head coach. Yeah. If Gladstone lets him, it's on them, but Gennaro's a good assistant too. Some good guys out there.
So what do you say to those people that might think, there are too many foreign rowers in the American collegiate system, and that's detrimental to the development of American rowing itself, or American college rowing or international rowing?
I think it makes rowing better overall. People are like, oh, make America. Like, no, we can learn so much from these rowers. We can have better, more eyes on the sport from across the seas. It's not just us. We need to bring in everybody, and it gets more eyes on our sport to watch these guys come and row here. We want eyes on our sport, overall, because then we follow them in college, and then we can follow them like, you meet a guy who goes GB, he goes to Harvard, you can follow him. The next thing you know, you're cheering for a guy, God forgive me, cheering for Great Britain boat in the Olympics. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do it. But I think it gets more eyes on our sport everywhere. Now we're following teams in Great Britain, New Zealand, Australia. You see all these unis come through, I think it's awesome to have these programs, row. Like, keep coming. Don't stop them.
Marco has suggested that US rowing need to develop small boats to catch up with foreign crews. What's your view on that? Thank you, Marco, for your question.
Marco Bovo. I know Marco. Marco coached me for a year at CRI. I drove him crazy.
Why did you drive him crazy?
It was time of the Athens Olympics, and I decided I want to go down the Athens Olympics and drink and party for a little bit instead of row for Marco for a couple of weeks. So I think he got mad at me. That was one of his better rowers. So sorry, Marco. We've made up since then, but yeah. I think we're going to develop small boats. I think we'll get there. I think we have, all the talent in place to do that. It's not like these guys are out there not just rowing in eights. They're rowing in pairs, They're rowing in pairs at UW. I heard UW had like 18 singles across, like at one point this year. 18 singles. I see Harvard, Northeastern, Yale, all these guys running small boats. So I think we'll be okay. I think we have the Clark Deans, the Ben Davisons. There's a few more out there that'll row small boats and get bigger and better and faster. It's not. Here's the thing: not everybody can win every event. As much as Daniel Spring would like to see GB win every event at the Olympics, it's still not going to happen. It's going to be spread out. We still got to have some countries, like the smaller countries, do well, and win Olympic events. So no matter what we do, it's not everyone's going to win. But I think at some point we will see American sculler do well and get a medal.
Yeah. In the senior championships. Marco's just coming back there suggesting they need to start when they're young.
They are starting when they're young. We've got middle school programs now in the U.S. Middle school. You go down to Sarasota with Casey Galvanic. You go to Saratoga in New York with Eric Catalano. They're starting kids out young now. These kids are starting young and they're getting better. I watch kids on the dock and I'm like, how did they figure out how to do that? I'm still scared to do that. Standing shoves. It's going to get there. We just took a little longer to get there because we have different sports. But these kids are starting younger. I travel all around the U.S. I see younger and younger kids going out in the water. I see them on the Charles River. It's great. It's fantastic to see young kids sculling, young kids in small boats. It's fantastic. It looks a little bit like Italy when you go for the silver skiff and they have the child's regatta the day before, the Kinderkind. It's starting to get there. Give it a little bit more time. 10 more years, maybe we'll be alive, maybe we won't, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Sean, I wanted to ask you, over the last year or so, what have been some of the hot issues that you've seen on the message boards or you've seen come up in US rowing that have, interested you, intrigued you?
There's stuff about not to go down this too far, but there's stuff about the coaches and how athletes are being treated.
Yeah,
that too much about that we've talked about that a little bit via text, I think it was, or chat on Twitter. Coaches aren't coaching the same way they did 10 years ago. It's a new different type of athlete. Tatey's not coaching the same way he did from 97 to 2000 or 2002. Yeah. He's changed too. So you've seen hot topics like that. Just people talking about, we're looking. There's just been a lot of questions about what's going to happen with the sport. We're losing lightweight rowing.
Yeah,
that's a shame. We got 3 more years. So we get this Olympics and we get the next Olympics. Can we keep it around, or are we going to see something like coastal rowing pop up? Or the other day, a friend of mine, Christine Cavallo, went down and did the beach sprints in Florida. She's a national team rower and did that.
Yeah.
So she had relatives who would not show up for a rowing race, but showed up for beach sprints because it has an element of surprise.
Oh, you're kidding.
They can watch. No, it's crazy. So will we see events like this pop up? So we're going to lose lightweight rowing, which is unfortunate, on the Olympic level, but are we going to see something like pop up like coastal rowing? So that's a hot topic. I mean, thank God we got 3 more years. Great to have 3 more years of rowing, but maybe we'll get to keep it. Maybe something will happen where, they decide to keep lightweight rowing. That was a hot topic. COVID was a huge hot topic. What programs can go out? It was political lines were drawn in rowing. For the first time ever, even myself is guilty. We got into it about politics on the site.
Yeah.
It's politics and COVID, and you can go with Donald Trump down this line. You can go. It was a very divided, and it still is a very divided America.
Is it?
It still is. It's. But with rowing coming back, all of it comes together. But with rowing gone, you have crews racing in one part of the country and crews who can't touch it, get into a boathouse in another part of the country. And you can almost see it's a red and blue state thing too, which is scary. COVID drove a lot. COVID drove a lot. Politics drove a lot last couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't talked about it since the election, but hey, rowing's back. People are racing. You know, winning cures everything. We got to see people win, so we're moving on.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess, do you expect to see the big American colleges, Harvard and Yale, you know, start up their programs in the
hell
fall?
yeah. Oh yeah, they're back. They're coming back. Harvard's already announced. I'm 10-minute walk from the Harvard campus where I live, and you know they're back full spring or full fall. You know.
Yeah.
Everything's back. Yale will be back. You know, everything will be back this fall. The numbers are getting there. As long as, you know, the variant doesn't go crazy, as long as people get vaccinated, you know, you get vaccinated, you could row. You know, I'm looking forward to going back to Heineken next year. I'm really missing 2 years of the Heineken regatta.
Yeah, that's a great regatta,
there.
isn't it?
Yeah, we raced there. Gotcha.
You had a good 8.
Yeah, we did. We did. Do you know that we flew? We had an even better 8. The first year it got canceled. Greg Benning put together even better 8, and it was the night that Trump came on and shut everything down. I flew all the way to Amsterdam, was there for 45 minutes, and turned home and flew back. That was a hell of a day. We were gonna race. We wanted to race. We knew our 8 was loaded. We had all these Charles winners. We had a French sculler who went to Canada and rode as well. I forget his name.
Julien Bahane.
Yeah, he was in our 8.
Wow, that's some 8.
Oh yeah, it was Greg Benning, myself, Dan Gorian, Matt Smith, Bahane. We were. Oh, we also had the Netherlands coxswain. We had.
Pete Weirson.
I think it was him. I'm not positive, but yeah, we were loaded.
Yeah.
I was on a plane in a hazmat suit, ready to go race. I was like, "Let's go, let's break some records."
That's fantastic.
I love it. Love it.
So in terms of when the full program starts, so the guys that should be back in Harvard and Yale, are they going to be able to do Henley in Britain in that mid-August
this year? I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping you guys have Henley. I guess that's the next thing. We just make sure Henley happens. You know, there's been some. It sounds like it's going to go full board, so it's good. I think. How long does Henley go on for?
Henley is generally 5 days. 5 days of racing, but it's going to move to a 6th day. You know, it's got more events now. It's put more women's events in the program, so. It's an expanding regatta, and very successful.
Race. I think it's over by the 15th. Am I right? It's August 15th.
I think so.
Yeah, I think they should be able to race. I think it'd be great. Get those guys some racing experience. I don't see why they wouldn't. I don't think anyone comes over too much before like the last week of August to start rowing, and I don't think programs would have too much of an issue with their boys getting some good work in at Henley. I mean, we need Henley. Oh man, there's nothing better than watching Henley. We get to watch it in August. Now, granted, the talent isn't going to be the same, but we're going to have racing. You know, we're going to have some good talent, but it won't be like the same as we normally get, you know. But I think it'd be great. Side by side. No one puts on a better show than Henley on YouTube or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we should. Yeah, that's great.
How popular is that in the US, Sean?
Henley?
That Henley feed, that TV feed.
Huge. My wife can't stand me. I'm there in July 4th weekend. I'm watching Henley at 7 in the morning. She wants to go get breakfast. No, I'm watching it live, arguing with Daniel Spring about who's going to win. You know, that's a huge feed. You know, Matt Pinson and company doing a great job over there. That's great stuff. Yeah, especially when you get races like, you know, 2018 in Kettle and Mahi. That's great. Or what was the race that Mahi came back? Was that 2018?
Yeah, that was. I think it was 2018. Because Kettle went on to win the world title, didn't he, that year? But he lost.
He lost to Mahi. You know,
he lost to Mahi.
Hugely. Do you realize I was watching that race? I shut my phone down and went to go do something. And someone came back. Hey, Sean, Mahi won. I'm get the hell out of here. Like, no. I'm like, how did he come? What, did Kettle crash into a boom or something? What happened? Like, nope. Came back. Crazy. That's great stuff. We follow it. We have it on our phones. We follow it. US loves that stuff. You could charge us and we would pay.
That's great. I know they put an awful lot of work into that at Henley. There's a question from Daniel Spring. Do either of us think any World Championship bound crews will come to Henley?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't think any U.S. crews will go to Henley. I don't know. I don't know. Sorry, Dan. I don't. Maybe you might see maybe the GB crews, like, developmental crews. I just like we're still selecting World Championship crews now. It's tough to say.
Yeah.
If I had a choice, would I rather go to Henley or would I rather go all the way to China and race? What experience do I want? I'd rather go to Henley, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's I passed my chance to go to race in Henley, and I'm still kicking myself to this day.
What happened?
It was just a long story. I was poor and didn't have enough money to go. And, I was in selection, I'd done well, and, I didn't go, and nothing against the guys who were there. They did a great job, but I wish I had gone. Yeah. That if you ask me races I would go to, Henley, any race in Lucerne. I think we should hold every World Championships in Lucerne, by the way. None of this bouncing around to China or wherever, Japan. I think you hold World Cups in different places. People can go. Every year you hold World Championships in Lucerne. Stop with all this madness. Like, that way you know where you're going, you know where you're staying, you don't know the cost every year. You just know where it is. And it's a great fast course. Let's stop wasting time with World Championships.
You'd have a lot of rowers agree with you. It's interesting, I think, because Lucerne thought it was going to be the favourite course of rowers, and then I think it was it up for a World Championships, and it lost to, I can't think who it lost to now, if it was Munich or somewhere like that.
Was that probably that French course that's beautiful?
Aiguebelette. It was just beautiful. And then Lucerne made the improvements. It made a spectator bridge in terms of pontoons and in terms of, the boat in it, the warm up and the cool down circulations. And it put a lot of work in when it lost that championships. But I think the championships, this year's World Championships in China is going to be massive for the sport. I think, there's so much opportunities in the way of sponsorship, hopefully for world rowing. From the Chinese community. I think going there and making a splash in Shanghai, I think that'll be really important for the sport, and important to get some of the Olympic crews coming over from the rowing community over to Shanghai. But I see it as a big opportunity for the sport to get some focus and publicity just in a massive market, and also to maybe with some sponsorship. I think that's.
I mean, we'll watch it still. I mean, it's still going to be we'll watch it and enjoy it. There's nothing better than the World Championships in like October.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, something just popped into my mind that I was going to ask you. What will happen to the lightweight programs in the States if lightweight rowing disappears from the Olympics? Will it have any impact at all?
Oh, I think it will. We've seen some of that feedback on the boards. I think it'll have some. I think we're already seeing more of an age grouping thing happen. I think it'll stay within the college ranks. I think you'll have still the IRAs for lightweight rowers. I think that'll still be there. I think it'll change what happens with kids after they row in college. What's the next step, for the guy? It's hard to say. I got to see what happens if lightweight rowing goes away. I think we'll still have it on the World Championship level. We just won't have it on the Olympic level, which would be sad. But I think that'll greatly reduce the talent that you see, between the lightweight crews. Man, the lightweight straightforward, that was a fantastic event,
Yeah.
watching South Africa win. Are we ever going to see a South African crew win an Olympic medal again?
Yeah, they've got a fast four this year, but it's not
Right.
quite fast enough to be up there. They'll be going for a medal. I think they'll make the final, that South African four.
Right. So, yeah, it's some countries will, what happens. Some countries will feel it. Some countries will feel, what happens to the Danish team. Danish lightweights are great.
I was working with two of them yesterday, Sean, with Victor Feddersen, who stroked the four that won in Atlanta and got a bronze in Sydney, and Eskild Eberson, who ended up with 3 Olympic gold medals in the lightweight men's four.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of bronzes as well. It was a sensational event, and the Danes were astride it, weren't they? They were just iconic in terms of the event, and now they're gone.
Yeah. I remember when, Eskil came over here to Boston for the Crash Bees, the indoor rowing competition. It's like the Masters race, and they put me in a front row for some God reason, and I'm looking down the line of who I'm racing. So we go, Greg Ruckman's in there, a whole bunch of good lightweight rowers who all been in the Olympics. These guys finish, and Eskil's like cheering me on as I'm still going. He's been going for like 30 seconds. I'm like, you go away, please. Just like, go away. Just could not believe, him and my buddy Ingo are like, yeah, keep going. I'm like 30 seconds behind these guys who are going close to 6 minutes.
He did, the two of them did a minute's rowing yesterday, just for this. It was this Olympic virtual series, and rowing was one of the events in it, the 5 sports. And the idea was, you did some stuff on the ergo and you logged your kilometers, and you had to do 17,550 kilometers from Rio to Tokyo. Which they made, but Eskild did a minute towards that, and he was like about 329 meters in a minute. Ooh. And I don't think he was going flat out, but he was, going pretty good. So he's still in good shape. But I
think he still does some racing and stuff like that. I think he does other sports. I think they've crossed over. But those guys are, man, you watch those races. Like, those are the races I grew up watching.
Yeah.
You go and find them online, and you listen to the commentary and you watch them. It's like the YouTube ones get a little grainy, but you love watching those races, those guys coming through. You remember that Polish lightweight double? That was a great double to race.
Kukowski and Stick.
Yeah, those guys were good. The Italian lightweight double, those guys were good, but never could get it done at the Olympics. Those guys were great. We're going to lose those type of events and guys. It's like, oh, man. Love lightweight rowing. I think we're losing something, but things change. Don't get me wrong. Things need to change. I think I would love to see the 8 be doubled into. I think.
Me too.
It's time. I love how we got our 8 and everything like that. I get that, but I think it's time we start doubling these guys up. There we go. Sorry, Marco said it. No, yes. I got a good story about. I think one of those guys. I met them in 2005 in trading stuff with my buddy Ingo Euler, who's a great German lightweight sculler. And I'm in the boatyard, and these guys come up to me and hands me his card with just his name on it, like business card. And I was like, I gave him my card. And he was a little shocked that I gave him my business card. I'm like, we're exchanging information. You just giving me your card. I was like, I didn't know what to do. Luini, yes, Luini and Petnari. But I think it's time for the guys in the women to double up into the 8. I think that would be great. I think it would make the event bigger. I mean, let's get more teams there in the 8.
Yeah, and the same for the quads. I think in another scale, get guys doubling up in the quads. Sean, we've been talking for over an hour now. It's been fantastic. I don't know where the time's gone. I just wonder if there's anything that we haven't talked about that listeners might be interested in, or that you think we haven't covered.
No, I think we've covered everything. I hope people enjoy this. I always want to know how you get everyone's names pretty much right at a regatta. You really
a lot of work.
Names right. I thank you for what you do in the banter, and I've pinged you on things like Dean Clark and Clark Dean. Getting the names right. I think it's great you guys give feedback on Twitter. So thank you for what you do. You know, it'd be great to meet up sometime. Yeah, I think we've covered everything. We can always come back and do it again. People love rowing.
Yeah. Well, I think we can make another date. Sean, I think we'll end the live part of the broadcast now, but just to say thank you for being such an enthusiast, not just on the water, but, you know, off it as well, being, you know, central pillar of that, you know, social media and communication in America, which has been so important as well. It's been a pleasure, Sean, talking with you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.